Anybody who's being honest would say, you're biased toward your kid. You love your kid. You want your kid to be successful. It's really hard to coach a team. It was hard for me sometimes, and it wasn't like I was trying to be biased, but I caught myself watching my kid play when I was coaching basketball. I thought I was a pretty good basketball coach. We had a good team, but I caught myself being a dad sometimes. And I'm watching during a game, instead of watching the other four players, I'm watching how he's, and a lot are you hustling? Are you sitting the screen like where you're supposed to? And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm being a dad here, not a coach. And it's just hard. It's really hard. And you have to catch yourself, and you should be extra hard on your kid, but you should always be intentional about going, I cannot come across like I'm showing favoritism to my kid.
No, for sure.
Because you're going to get blamed for it anyway if you're doing it.
No doubt. But I think that's where you use those moments, like we talked about, whether it's on the way home or the next day, to do these things. Like when I'm coaching softball and Emma Kate might strike out, right? And she runs back to the dugout. I'm the third base coach. I don't have time to come over here and talk to you about your AB. Mm-hmm. I can maybe do that between innings or whatever, or you sit her, but it's like, I got to be locked in with this next girl who I'm entrusted to do the same thing for my daughter that I am her.
It's Kirk Herbstreit.
Oh, Sean McVay.
Kerry Walsh Jennings.
Here we got
Greg Gazan.
John Isner.
Ryan Howard.
Greg McElroy.
Got Drew.
Chris Sale.
Mark DeRosa.
Cade Klubnik. Derek White.
Reese Davis.
Marty Smith.
Before we jump into today's episode, I want to tell you about Booster. If you got kids playing sports in middle school or high school, Booster is the easiest way to raise money for their team. From uniforms and equipment to travel expenses, Booster makes fundraising simple and fun for schools and sports programs. Check them out at choosebooster.com. That's choosebooster.com, or just click the link in our description to see how your team can boost their fundraising this season.
Welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm Jeff, along with these two bozos.
Knuckleheads, bozos.
How are we doing, guys?
That hurt my feelings.
Sorry. Britt and Brad. How's that?
We're doing good. You should need to have some respect for your elders.
You're right. I apologize. My dad would get all over me. So yeah, we've had Big Dave on here. I don't want to get him on here again and give him
Big Dave was pretty popular.
He was.
He was.
Okay. He's Big Dave. That's all you got to say. I'm excited for this because we get a lot of all the great athletes, all the things we get a lot of DMs, and I think this kind of has been a big topic recently. And I think, we've all kind of done it with our own kids a little bit, but like the hat of being the coach versus the parent, right? Like that's, I think, a big thing. How do you keep that relationship as a parent great while still being able to coach your kids and coach their friends? And I truly think some people can do it, some people can't. And I think it also depends on the kid a little bit. So I just want to start off talking a little bit. You coached your kids.
Yep.
What was kind of the...
Yep. Well, before I say that, I want to say one thing. You mentioned we get a lot of DMs.
Yeah.
You can go on our website.
Yeah.
And you can contact us. And man, we love to get your ideas for content and questions you have. So send those in. Now back to your question. What did I do? I coached all my kids, when they were young. And I coached them in baseball, and I actually coached 1 year in soccer as an assistant because I didn't know what I was doing.
I'd love to.
Well, you have great feet,
but
I can tell just by watching your pace.
Appreciate that. That means a lot.
Stride.
You,
like
Brett put the corner kicks in.
But I coached basketball, and for until they were about 11 or so, until middle school, and had a blast with them, and we coached. It's pretty easy. I knew fundamentals and all those kinds of things. So at young ages, it was pretty easy. Tennis, on the other hand, I coached them early on, and I knew tennis well, and but they got to a point where I realized I needed to let go and let somebody else. So that's kind of. We'll get into our journeys, but those are the things I coached.
Yeah, football, basketball, baseball, but and coached with my dad, who was a college football coach, and there's some pretty funny stories when I'd want to give him advice or counsel or an idea for a play call, and he'd look at me like, "You don't know anything." But coached, up until I guess I stopped coaching him in middle school, but all the Pee Wee stuff and like elementary school age. Did that. So it was, I loved it. It was great.
So yeah, I mean, I'm coaching all four of
Yeah.
mine at different times, but I think the larger thing would be, do you think it's good for parents to also coach your kids?
Yeah. I mean, these are all opinions, but 100% yes.
Yeah.
At early ages. It's kids mostly enjoy it if you handle it the right way. They enjoy having their parent around. And again, you don't have to be the head coach. You can just be another body that's out there, helping herd the kids here and there. But it was a blast for me. And I'll tell you this. My second daughter, I had never coached in anything, and she was playing middle school tennis, and the middle school tennis coach asked me to be a community coach. And I was like, oh man, I don't have time and this and that. And she was like, you haven't coached your daughter in anything. You're going to miss out. You should do it. And she put a lot of pressure on me. I did it. I was so glad I did it. It meant so much to my daughter to do that for a year.
That's cool.
I agree with Britt, but I would preface it by saying you have to have the right goals in mind for why you want to coach your kid. If you want to coach your kid to spend time with your kid, especially dads, and I think moms that coach probably come at it a little differently. But if in the business world, I came across so many men that said they wish they'd been coaches, but they couldn't afford to, or maybe they didn't feel like they were qualified to. And they use their kids' little league experience to kind of live out that dream of theirs. Or they sit there and go, this is a chance I get to coach. I'm going to get to coach my kid. I'm going to do research. And so, I mean, if that's your goal, and again, a lot of times you may not know that till you get out there and you realize, I love this because coaching is fun. But I think, yeah, especially when you're younger, it's a chance to spend time with your son or daughter in an environment that's a blast. If you're doing it just for time with them and really to truly be a help to the head coach or to the league that needs it, because you have to. The reason so many parents coach is because you need volunteers.
Yeah.
And there's not people lined up to coach other people's kids, But if your motives are great, it's 100%. It's awesome. But you got to make sure you check your motives.
So if your motivation is to be Coach K for 8U basketball, that might be an issue.
Yeah.
We've all seen that.
No,
for sure.
Sure. I'll say this. I think at young ages, every parent should coach their kids or help out at least 1 year. I think it's fun. You get to see them in a different kind of thing in the dugout, the dumb stuff they say on the field. Now, I do know this, as they get older, and say you get to that middle school, if you are going to coach, and I go back to remember Dabo Sweeney and that one thing, you have to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And like I told my wife that, like, Braden, there's another year or two for me to coach him in lacrosse. I'm the hustle police.
Sure.
I get on the kid. But when he gets into sixth grade, don't know enough about the ins and outs to get in there. Football, if Braden decides to keep playing, time wise, and I don't have that ability.
Let me ask you this: if you were retired, okay, and your kid's high school said, "Hey, we'd love you to come be a DB coach at the high school, or we'd love you to be a defensive coordinator or your offensive coordinator." I don't know which one you played both sides. What would you think about that?
Until Camden, I probably wouldn't do it until my last kid, because then I got nobody sitting there below.
But if all your kids are kind of,
but you think about it, if you commit to doing a high school football season all year, you're doing it from July 20th all the way until February. That you're not going to be able to see your other kids. Like, that's one thing I won't do, is I won't just coach one sport and not be able to see my other three kids. And I even set up with our middle school, or not middle school, but my daughter's 12U travel team in the spring, that there's going to be some morning games that I'm going to miss, being at a T-ball game or a lacrosse game.
The other piece of that I would say is, and maybe this is different depending on the sport, but just because you were really, really good as a kid or even a pro, I mean, things have changed in terms of techniques and so on and so forth. And it doesn't mean that you go in and coach today and you do it the same way it was done 20 years ago.
Well, that's a great example. The football that I played in high school and a lot of the schemes I know are probably completely different than what you do today with the spreads and doing all that. And I think it's also knowing your kids. Can they handle you having them as a coach? Can your kid handle criticism from you as a coach? Not just America, because there's a lot of kids. I have a girl on my softball team now who's dad coached her for 4 years, and he knows a lot of softball. And he's like, I can't coach her anymore. We do not.
Yeah.
We can't do that. I'm just going to sit back and let you coach her.
Yeah.
I think a lot of dads, especially, I go back to dads because they're worse than moms, but that don't have a lot of experience, try to make things too complicated. They don't know how to run a practice. They don't know how to keep the kids' attention. They don't know how to make it fun. But then they get too caught up in schemes. And the greatest defensive coordinator, it was an NFL coordinator, talked about. He goes, the number one thing he teaches is tackling.
Yeah.
He said, there's really only so many defensive schemes you can.
Eventually it comes out, you got to tackle.
Yeah, there's 3-4, there's 4-3, there's 2 deep safeties and 1 deep safety. He said, but I look like a genius because my guys know how to tackle. But a lot of times, that's somebody who has the experience to know better. Like, what are you supposed to be teaching these kids at 12 years old?
No, you're
where
right.
a dad who doesn't is going to come. We're going to do a blitz package and we're stuff like that. And they think that nobody's mentoring them. I guess to like, hey, you need to be focusing on the fundamentals.
Sometimes you just got to let it go and just have fun. And you talk about our flag football. Me and another guy coached my son's team in flag football. So we had all these pages of all these plays, and we put it up. And the kids would run every route wrong. It was like, you're orange this one. We had a color coded. And so we're doing it again this winter. And we decided, you know what we're going to do? We're literally going to line the kids up, 2 on each side, and tell them to run routes. Literally, like almost like backyard football.
Yeah,
Go find the open kid and just let them have fun.
We're
fun. Literally not even going to coach.
Yeah.
It's going to be, the only thing we're going to be there for is to tell which kids are in the game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's do that one year and have fun. Like,
that's what they're doing.
Put these plays in, we do this, and it never works.
That's what they're doing at recess, and they love it.
Exactly.
They have the best time.
You're right.
Why would you mess with that?
That's what we say. So we're going to have 8-10-year-old boys, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I love it.
That's interesting. That's cool. Cool. So, there's a lot of discussion around, the dangers or the negatives about coaching your own kids. So let's talk about what some of those things are. So,
well, we can go number one right off the bat. And we've all seen it. We've all experienced it. Daddy ball.
Daddy ball. So define daddy ball.
Daddy ball is when your kid sucks. And we're keeping this on there. I'm sorry. That was funny. But
no edit.
I think it's usually the opposite, though. Go ahead. Finish your point. I think it's a lot of times in Little League, it's the best kid's dad usually is coaching that team. And so he's putting that kid, he or she, in a prominent position.
Yeah, but I've seen it the other way too, where the kid's not great and he's out there playing shortstop.
Well, they probably elevate him too, yeah. But I usually have seen it where, the best kid, the most talented kid, his dad is the coach, and then it's all about that kid.
Yeah, I've kind of experienced it where the kid is in the upper tier, but he's not necessarily the best, but he gets the best slot. He's playing shortstop. Yeah, he's hitting every
he's
time.
Quarterback. He's the starting point guard, bringing the ball up.
And he's not terrible, but he doesn't deserve to do that.
I think the biggest thing with coaching and what you just said, I think, is something that not enough coaches do. Is like they only work with say it's T-ball and you have circle first. Yeah. Only work with these 3 kids.
Oh yeah. First baseman.
And it's like, it almost should be the opposite.
Yeah.
You should go work with the other kids way more because they need it, especially at that age, not knowing, but they don't do that.
Yeah. It's, I think it's incredibly hard to coach your kid. And I think anybody who's not honest, anybody who's being honest would say, you're biased toward your kid. You love your kid. You want your kid to be successful. It's really hard to coach a team. It was hard for me sometimes, and it wasn't like I was trying to be biased, but I caught myself watching my kid play when I was coaching basketball. I thought I was a pretty good basketball coach. We had a good team, but I caught myself being a dad sometimes. And I'm watching during a game, instead of watching the other 4 players, I'm watching how he's, are you hustling? Are you sitting the screen like where you're supposed to? And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm being a dad here, not a coach. And it's just hard. It's really hard. And you have to catch yourself, and you should be extra hard on your kid, but you should always be intentional about going, I cannot come across like I'm showing favoritism to my kid.
No, for sure.
Because you're going to get blamed for it anyway if you're doing it.
No doubt. But I think that's where you use those moments, like we talked about, whether it's on the way home or the next day, to do these things. Like when I'm coaching softball and Emma Kate might strike out, right? And she runs back to the dugout. I'm the third base coach. I don't have time to come over here and talk to you about your AB. Mm. I can maybe do that between innings or whatever, or you sit her, but it's like, I got to be locked in with this next girl who I'm entrusted to do the same thing for my daughter that I am her. And you see that a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Yeah.
youth football, whatever, you'll see a coach all of a sudden over there just talking to his kid for 5 minutes. Like, dude, there's a whole
Yeah.
game going on.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't just check out because your kid stunk.
Yeah.
Well, and that is the hard part because you're emotionally invested in your kid.
Yeah.
But you're the coach of the whole team.
Yeah, when you take that commitment,
Yeah.
you're in charge of everybody. And I think, we've had guys on here and girls that I thought have said a great thing sometimes. Like sometimes if you do have that, let the other coach your kid too.
Yeah.
Put more of an emphasis on them to be able to, so you can worry about the whole team, the other kids, but that your kid makes a mistake, let the other coach spend 2-3 minutes talking to her or him about what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is one person and one person only who will define your kid's dreams, and that's your kid.
If you want something, like, you have to work for it.
Your ability to counter a weapon is paramount to your game development.
Or just losing perspective on what youth sports are really about.
Teach your kid the value of winning, but not at all costs. Get a lot of questions on when an athlete should start strength training.
If your athlete follows my protocol, they are going to have better energy than ever before.
They can't come to you when you're born and say, you got character. You got to build that.
You can win, but if you're not really impacting lives, I think you lose.
We just had Billy Wagner on. He talked about, coaching his kid.
Yeah.
And where is the balance? This is the big question. How do you balance when you're the dad or the mom and when you're the coach?
And I think, again, right, this is where you have to know the kid.
Yeah.
You have to truly understand the expectations of, like, I have 4 kids, and I can go ahead and tell you that I have a feeling with my 2 youngest, I might need to let go and let someone else coach them, just personality wise, right? That we might clash. It's why my dad, after I was 11 years old, he never coached me again in baseball. He's like, you were good. You needed to hear other voices. You need to hear other people get on you besides me. He's like, you responded great to me, but I knew at some point, you were probably going to play varsity as a freshman in 3 years. So I knew we were only 2 or 3 years away from you getting that. And you were going to get yelled at a lot, or you were going to I needed you to hear other voices.
That's wise.
And so that's what I'm saying. I think every kid is different.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you also need to realize, when you need to back out, whether it's for personal, like emotional reasons, or you feel like you're just you don't want to hurt that relationship, or like you said, you don't know that sport that well. You're hurting your kid's development. I think a lot of parents coach their kids probably longer than they should, but I think their motives are good. I think you hear a lot of parents say, I just want to make sure they're in a good environment. I want to, especially when they go from rec to travel. So you see a lot of these parents kind of getting together going, hey, we're going to try to form a travel team because we want to do it the right way. We want to do it a healthy way. Or hopefully they they bring in an expert coach to come in and be that coach. But a lot of times they've seen the unhealthiness of travel sports or club sports. And so when their kid's getting to that point, they try to do it the right way, which means they're probably involved. They may not have the coaching acumen to coach at that level, but they're trying at least to say, hey, I want to make sure if for my kid it's being done right. And done right, hopefully, is not they get to play all the time, but being done right, that we're doing it for development, for fun, for things like that. But it's hard.
I think it's both, Brad. I think it's, a lot of people get into it because they want to make sure that the right environment's being created, but a lot of people want to make sure their kid's getting a fair shake.
Yeah.
Too.
And is that bad?
No, I don't think it's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have had an experience last year and their kids being played out of position. And that's, but sometimes we're seeing things through a wrong lens.
Yeah.
But if it's frustrating.
It is frustrating. But if you do go down that road and you decide to coach, don't do to another kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
exactly.
That's where you have to have.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, like, I coach my daughter's travel softball team because I know I can control the narrative. I control the tournaments we plan.
Yeah.
I control everything in a good, healthy way.
Yeah.
That if I don't, you can't.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, that whole deal about wearing both hats, we talk a lot about the car ride home as a parent and how tough that is. Dude, when you're the coach, it's even tougher because getting in the car as the coach and you've just lost a game and your son or daughter hasn't done well, it's even that much harder not to want to talk about some of that stuff and bring some of your frustration than if you just were sitting in the stands.
Yeah, you got to take the coach hat off and put the parent hat on. The tough thing about it with cell phones today, this just hit me, is that even if like you're walking to the car going, hey, I'm not going to talk about the game, what happens is the assistant coach usually calls you.
Yeah.
And so you're on speakerphone for the next 30 minutes on driving.
Can you believe so?
Talking about the game. And so instead of having, and gosh, it breaks my heart thinking about it, instead of having that 30 minutes of intentional time with my kid, just, encouraging them or talking about something else, you're still talking about the game.
And they can hear everything.
Yeah. And you're probably not saying the most positive things sometimes. Yeah.
Which is really key. And I mean, your kids are being exposed to, at home and places to everything you're saying about their buddies.
Yeah.
In terms of their performance and so on and so forth, which is hard for a kid.
Yeah.
It's hard for a kid to deal with.
It's not fair.
What are some of the positives?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let's flip to the other side.
We talked about some of them, just spending time and relationship and
being
so
able to make it
forth.
good situations for your kid, for their friends. I would say too, if you're an expert or not, I shouldn't say expert, but if you have a lot of knowledge in that sport, that the kids are getting taught the right way to play the game.
For sure. I mean, it'd be crazy for you not to have some say in your kids playing baseball.
Absolutely. Baseball, softball, the same thing, like the swings, the this and that. Like you want, you want your kid to know, it's like I always said, when you hear of these scenarios, like Brian McCann coaches his own team, other stuff, but you hear of these teams and, it might be like a Chipper Jones, right? Son's on this team. And I'm like, if you're not this coach, how are every once in a while you're not, can you come do a hitting practice with your team?
Yeah.
Like, are you that scared or that what? Like, why would you not want him to work with your kids?
Right.
Well, not just that, but like, gosh, think about have Billy Wagner come talk to your team to talk about, hey, see that guy over there that's a senior, or see that guy, the kid that's a ninth grader and you're a fifth grader. That kid looked like you when he was in fifth grade. Or let me tell you my story. I was 5'5" as a senior in high school. Like, not just the technical stuff, but just the life lessons and the encouragement and the, being a role model, for these kids. Use those resources. I think one of the positives it's in here. Britt made the notes is there's such a need for good coaching. If you feel called to coach, and you're not a high school coach even, but you're a parent, there's just need for good coaches. And so like, try to coach because there's a lot of bad coaches out there. So if you think you've got the right heart in it, you think you've got the right, motive behind it, I would sit there and say, like, if I was coaching a sport that I wasn't an expert in, or I wasn't super experienced in, I would try to bring someone with me that was a technical coach. And I would be the chief hustle officer.
Yeah.
I'd be the guy that would
hustle police.
Or they would be looking for the intangible stuff, looking for, body language. If a kid looks like they're hurt, if a kid, because that's what's tough. A lot of times, even watching our high school coaches, is like the head coach is so intent on what's going on with like the next play or whatever, that there may be a kid who's still playing, but you can tell he's just gassed, hurt. That's what the assistant coaches have to point out. Hey, you might want to replace her because she's really struggling out there, or something's going on mentally with her. And having that, that's the role I would play. I would let the guy who knew more than I coach the technical stuff, but I would be the one trying to hopefully fill in the gaps.
He'd be the CEO.
I would delegate. I'd delegate
like the Bobby Bowden, and then bring in.
Up on the
I don't know. I would
on the tower.
I don't know. I'd love to dial up some offensive plays, though. That'd be pretty fun to dial up some.
I think another thing too is just spending quality time with your kids.
Yeah.
And I think I look at it for like one thing. I told my wife this the other day. Like I've enjoyed with Emma Kate, and she's 12 now, and a lot of the stuff she used to talk to me about now is with Katie.
Yeah.
Kind of talk. So like when we do get a drive to a softball tournament and home, it's kind of our time to spend together.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of cool.
Oh, it's super cool.
It's really cool.
It's super cool. I love all that. Brad, I love what you were just talking about because, you know, as pure athlete, we talk so much about coaches, you know, especially at young ages, making this a great experience where kids fall in love with the sport and they want to play the next time. And if you're not the X's and O's guy, you can be that guy.
Yeah.
You know, you can be the guy that's watching around and, you know, this kid looks like he's not doing well. How do I make this a better experience for him?
I mean, I think it's funny. I heard in that, gosh, I wish I had the exact quote, but it was a guy who was like a longtime Little League coach. And he said the biggest compliments he got were for kids that stopped playing that sport, like when they hit middle school or whatever, and really just, you know, lost the desire for that sport or weren't good enough to keep playing that sport, but came back to him and said, man, I had a blast playing for you.
Yeah.
Like I had a blast playing baseball for you for those 4 or 5 years that you were my Little League coach, even though I was never going to be good enough to play high school or I didn't have, you know, I wanted to get into other things. Right. But that experience was so positive.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't end in him being whatever, a star.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I mean, what a great goal to have.
Great moments.
As a Little League coach.
Yeah,
you know,
that's great. Jeff, I want to ask you this because you're coaching right now. You're coaching your kid, and we talk about, you know, coaches showing favoritism toward their kids and all that. But a lot of times, you know, one of the dangers is that you're tougher and you're harder on your kid, and you create more pressure for your own kid than you do for others. So how do you manage that?
Well, and I remember it was actually cool on our team. I had a couple other parents, my other coach and Katie, because I used to always tell my kids, like, you have to be unequivocally better than that other kid for me to put you in front of them, like in a lineup a lot of times or doing whatever. And so, like, you know, coaching my kids, there's got to be about, I let them know the expectation, though. I talk to them like, you know, like you're going to have to do A, B, and C to move up in the lineup or to, you know, play quarterback today or do this. And I think it's set an expectation with them. And I think it's not that, I don't think you have to be harder on them. We've all seen those funny videos, right? Of like the dude hitting the ground ball to 4 kids and then your kid comes up and it's like, whack, right? Like that's just being mean.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's not being whatever, but I think what you do is you set expectations with your kids that I'm your dad first and foremost, but I'm also your coach.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I want these parents to know that I love and want to coach their kids the same way I want to coach you.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be a time where I'm tougher on you or I get on you and maybe you don't deserve it. And sometimes I think that's where you have to be honest and maybe even, you know, ask your kid for forgiveness sometimes, or if you mess up, we're all going to mess up. But I also think it's good because I think for your own kid, it can make them feel like they need to reach a higher expectation, which I think can help them. I do. If your kid can handle it, I think it's sometimes good to know my dad expects this out of me. My mom, who's my coach, expects this out of me. And, you know, I need to be able to live up to that.
I get it. This is maybe a little bit off topic, but I've always wanted to ask you this, and you may have addressed it in the past, but I mean, you're coaching your kids, probably 10 miles from where you grew up?
Yep.
Do you ever wish that they didn't put the last name on the back of their jerseys? Would that be easier on your kids?
Oh, well, it's funny in softball tournaments. My assistant coach gets mad all the time because, you know, we'll go to these tournaments and we get everybody's ace because they all want to beat me.
Sure.
They see, you know, Diamond Dogs, Francoeur, and they're like, you know, so you get these girls coming blowing cheese. And then you see them play the other team and pool player like, well, why didn't we get a face?
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's funny because like Katie says it, she loves that Braden doesn't play baseball. She's like, he doesn't care in football, lacrosse, golf, all this stuff. And my youngest, you know, he might just be dumb enough to not even know and care. You know, he just goes out there, you know, but I do think that, you know, there are times that they're very aware of what I did but again, I think sometimes it's cool to see them recognize, you know, because I've talked to them before about this, like all the hard work that I put in to do, like just being able to have that simple conversation. Well, your dad, while his jersey is on the outfield wall at Parkview, let me tell you what I did to get that. Not just besides being talented at doing it, but I was the first one there. So it's, again, not telling your kid you have to do this, but if you do want to do this and you do want to play in high school and these are the things you have to do. So it's honestly, I've liked it because it's open dialogue and conversation with my kids. And, but you know, I do think with Braden with baseball, and I said it after a while, remember we worked through this when we were doing these podcasts of like Katie finally saying, I don't think your son likes baseball.
Yeah.
You know? And it was so obvious once I was opened up to it. And now I love it. He does football, lacrosse, golf.
But it wasn't because he felt pressure having the Francoeur name. It was because he just didn't love the sport.
He just didn't love the sport, you know? And so I'm like, I'm sure if Camden continues to play baseball and we get to 12, 13, I'm sure there will be a time you have to come to that and have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've used the word conversation like 5 times in the past couple of minutes, and I think it's so important. You know, if you're coaching your kid, to sit down with them before the season starts and just dialogue about
expectations.
You know, even, I mean, if they're 5 years old, but what are expectations and what are pitfalls that might happen, because it's hard to wear a coach and a parent hat, and just let them know, you know, you're trying to do this the right way.
Yeah.
And it may look like this sometimes, but you're trying to be here, and let's just keep talking.
Yeah.
We have a friend of the show. Sounds like something people say on the radio. Guy named Sean Coach. Sean Coach, who's a head pro at Atlanta Athletic Club, and we're going to actually use him for some content later on. But he talks about, you know, when he's got a son who plays, he's a golf pro. He was a successful golfer. His son's, I think, 13, really good golfer. But he talks about, he goes, I tell my son, I put on a coach's hat and I put on a parent hat, or dad hat. And he said, he's used an example. He said, you know, his son was in the backyard. He was just wailing away, you know, hitting off the tee, but just having a blast and pretending like he was playing at the Masters. And, you know, and, you know, he's just watching, and he's like, he had my dad hat on. I'm going, man, that's awesome. Just have fun. He said, his kid said, hey, what do you think about like whatever, my draw, whatever? And he goes, okay, wait a minute. Do you want me to put on my coach's hat? Because if I put on my coach's hat, I'm going to say, well, you need to set your feet right here or whatever. But he said, he set the boundary with his kid, saying, hey, if you want me to keep my dad hat on, it's just going to be about fun. It's just going to be about us having a great time together. And you want to go just have a great time. We'll go play 18. But if you want me to put on my coach's hat, I will coach you. But he gives his son the choice of kind of the timing and when that is. And I just thought it was pretty cool.
I love that, sir, because you let them gradually take the journey or however they want when they realize it.
Yeah.
So finishing up, I guess, what you're just saying, how do you balance the parent hat versus coach hat? I know it's easy to talk about, but you can get carried away in the moment, right?
I think a couple of things. One, you got to, you know, unless you're single parenting, which is really hard.
Yeah.
You got a spouse who can check you, and they'll typically will tell you when you got the coach hat on a little too strong.
Yeah, you're out of line.
You know, you've got other people coaching with you that you can have a conversation with ahead of time and ask them to check you as well. You have constant conversations with your kid, but we're going to go back because we just recently talked to Billy Wagner, who's coached all of his sons at the high school level, and they were high level players. And he said, you err on the side of wearing your dad hat too much.
Yep.
And not your coach hat too much.
That's what you said. Like you can end it up with this because you had a great quote too. Like, go ahead and say,
if you're going to mess up with the coach hat, not the dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that sums it up.
That's the key.
And I'll say,
and you're going to mess up.
No. And the other thing though, too, is I think when you're coaching a kid and as they get older, again, 5 years old, and you're talking about these kids, but 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, a lot of these kids you're coaching usually are going to be friends of your own kids.
Yeah.
So make sure you're not talking about these kids at home.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because it's the last thing you want is your kid feeling anything. Hey, kids go to bed. You want to air it out to your wife. You know, I can't believe what Samantha did.
Yeah.
It's great. But you don't want to put your kid in those compromising situations and then even change their idea about that other kid because of something they did on a field. So just be very cognizant when you're at home of not talking about it too much.
Yep.
Great stuff.
So make sure you DM. Let us know what your thoughts are, some more topics, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out more videos from us right here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a thing. Follow us on social media at Pure Athlete Inc. for even more content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.